Welcome to the Living a Nordic Life podcast, where we explore a simpler, cosier and more intentional life the Nordic way. I'm Fiona McKenna, your Nordic living guide and founder of Living a Nordic Life, where I share all things Nordic living and show you that a Nordic life is the way to bring intentional calm and healthy habits into your own life, wherever you are in the world. Are you looking for ways to bring simplicity, coziness and calm into your life? Well, let me show you how. Visit the Living a Nordic Life website to explore how I can help you on your journey to simple, healthy and happy calm, the Nordic way. You can subscribe to the podcast right here. And if you want regular inspirational emails sent with love from Norway and straight to your inbox, don't forget to subscribe to the Living a Nordic Life newsletters. And so now let's dive into our episode. Welcome to the perennial kitchen garden. I love gardening, and I know lots of other people who also love gardening. In fact, you might be some of those. Quite a lot of people in my social media groups and who follow me on Instagram and read my blog and listen to the podcast really like gardening, because it's a really nice way to slow down. But when I was in my 20s, it wasn't quite so cool, and certainly not for many of my peers. There were a few of us who'd bought our houses when we were really young, like 21, 22, and we really wanted to create this lovely space. So we were interested in gardening to a certain extent, as much as you can, when it's your first house. And I was the geek who always germinated her own seeds and was weeding in her garden, even though I had a really tiny garden, like so many starter homes in England. But I rarely grew anything edible. It's funny that, isn't it? Apart from maybe a few herbs. I always had herbs on the windowsill, and because I was a chef as well, I always wanted to be able to have something fresh, but it hadn't occurred to me to grow them outside. And it wasn't until I moved to Norway that I really started adding edible plants to my garden. The more Andre and I grew, the more we wanted to grow. And we loved the satisfaction of being able to pick things that we'd grown. It's great that, isn't it? Even if it's just a tomato. What started out as just a few pots of herbs grew into what is now a micro farm. Not only do we feed ourselves with fresh vegetables and fruit, but we also share it with our friends and family, and I sell it on our little gårdsbutik or farm stand. Gardening is great for us, even if we look beyond what it can produce. I mean, there's that obvious idea, isn't there, that if you grow something, it's going to feel great and you're going to know what goes in it and you're going to know what you're putting on it. That's another thing, because you can go organic if you want to. But it's also the fact that it's good for us mentally. It gets us out into the fresh air, we connect with nature, and we follow the seasons closely. You don't have any choice but to follow the seasons. We might otherwise miss what is growing in that season, or what it is at its best. But it's hard to avoid when you have a garden or terrace full of produce. You know you're not going to go out there and pick tomatoes in the middle of December, unless you live in the tropics, in which case, wonderful, you can pick anything. But certainly for those of us in more temperate zones, north and south of the equator, we know that you're not going to get those things in the middle of the winter. And there are certain things that grow very well. Now, for all of those who don't have outside space, don't tune out yet, because like I said earlier, my gardening journey started small. Gardening is not only what you can grow in a garden, but also what grows in pots and on windowsills. You'd be surprised how much you can actually grow on a windowsill. On a few windowsills you can easily grow lettuces, herbs, even tomatoes and chilies. They like it because it's hot and you can take care of them. As long as you've got the time to actually feed them and water them and prune them if they need it, then that's wonderful. But what I wanted to talk to you about today was something called perennial kitchen gardens. Perennial means that it goes on and on. It's something that lasts for a long time or even infinite time. So in terms of fruit and vegetables, these are plants that you don't need to plant over and over again year after year. They're something that you would plant once and then it keeps growing. They grow over time and take years to produce fruit and vegetables repeatedly without you ever having to replant. So think apple trees or peach trees. Something that, you buy a house and the apple tree would be there and it's been there for 3 generations. That's perennial. I love perennial fruit and vegetables. I enjoy planting all the one-off stuff too, like lettuces and tomatoes. But it's good to have a percentage of the garden taken up with perennial fruit and vegetables because it cuts down on your workload. It's natural, isn't it? You still have to do a little bit of pruning and you have to do some feeding and you have to take care of them. But that's really in the autumn and the spring. And you will definitely need to harvest. If you're doing the right thing, you need to harvest. But there's the time and effort taken with planting seeds and potting on seedlings and hardening them off. Do you know what I'm talking about? You start planting something, let's take a courgette. Planting something in maybe March and you have it inside. Then you've got to repot it, maybe 3 or 4 times before you can put it outside. And although they produce an amazing amount of fruit, courgettes, if you plant them right, they still need an awful lot of time compared to a tree or a bush or something that has been planted once. So, I want to give you some examples of my favourite perennial edibles. In my part of Norway, we're in climate zone 4. And if you're not familiar with climate and you want to start gardening, you need to have a bit of a Google of it really, because it gives you an idea of what you can grow, what zone you're in, which is important, and when you'll get the first and the last frost, and what kind of temperatures you can expect. Zone 4 is quite a hard zone. We get cold winters down to about -25, -30 degrees centigrade. The first frost is about September and the last frost is May. And we frequently get snow in May as well. So you need to consider all of these things. Some plants like frost, like lettuces, for example. You plant lettuce seedlings out 3 weeks before the last frost and they do really well in that. It's incredible. You think they would die, but they don't. They love it. But perennials like it here as well, because they get nicely established over the years and they produce abundantly in the short but warm growing season. So I don't really need to think about them. I give things a little bit of a prune and take a little bit of care of it, make sure if they don't need to be fed. They often don't actually, because our soil is quite fertile. But that's it. And then I know that I've always got these things growing. So my favourites, and the favourites that you would see here in Norway as well. And the first has to be berry bushes. Scandinavia is famous for its love of berries. And these include raspberries, black and red currants, and strawberries. I've got some black currant and red currant bushes which produce abundantly every year that are, they must be easily 20 years old. And they do really well. And the most that I do to those is give them a little bit of a prune when I pick the fruit. And that's it. And I try to keep the chickens away from them as well in the spring, because otherwise they knock the flowers off. It's sometimes a good idea as well to just put a little bit of netting over them, because I've noticed the sparrows have started eating the flowers and the fruit. So don't always have that much. But luckily with currants you can use the leaves as well. And the leaves taste just as much of black and red currant as the berries. How amazing is that? You don't get the colour. But they do taste very strongly. You could use them for tea, all sorts of things. I make a really lovely lemon drink. It's a Finnish lemon drink and it's slightly fermented, but the main ingredient is blackcurrant leaves. So I really look forward to the leaves coming out because I know that I can use them. And they come out before a lot of other things as well. And that's the beauty of perennial gardening with berries. But also you could try it with strawberries. I know that a lot of people replant them, but the last couple of years I have been trying to keep my strawberries going in my polytunnel. And they're doing really, really well this year. So strawberries for me are another perennial. You don't need to replant. And they will reproduce. They send out little runners on a stalk with a baby strawberry plant at the end. Once that's got roots, you can replant that somewhere else. So you have this endless supply of strawberry plants. Raspberries, of course, grow wild here in Norway, so we don't usually plant them, although there are raspberry farms and the raspberries are a little bit bigger. But again, it's another perennial that will just get on with it and do it itself. And you will probably need to keep it a bit contained because they can go crazy. But again, easy, predictable as well. And can be used for a lot of other things because again, you can use raspberry leaves in herbal teas and to flavour things. Jerusalem artichokes. Now, I know not everybody likes these and not everybody is familiar with them, but here in Norway, they're really popular. And if you've never eaten Jerusalem artichokes, I recommend you go straight out and get some immediately now. They're delicious. They look rather like a small lumpy potato, but they have the taste of a globe artichoke. You know, the traditional green artichokes that we're most familiar with. With the fresh ones, you don't need to peel them, but they can be baked, pureed, or made into soup. I have to say I peel them. They're a bit of a pain to peel because they're very knobbly, but I peel them because I like to make them into puree. The end product of whatever you cook with them is creamy and delicious. And it's not starchy either, so you don't get that stickiness that you get from mashed potato, but it does look like mashed potato. But the plants are pretty as well. They grow tall and lush with beautiful elongated leaves and yellow flowers. So you have something pretty that's growing and looks amazing as well. You know, it's not some tiny little plant. They're big. When you harvest them, you simply pull them up, the whole plant, and pluck off the tubers, which are the Jerusalem artichokes. You can put a few back in the ground for next year and you're good to go. That's it, simple as that. You don't have to do anything else. You have your Jerusalem artichoke bed or your pot with them in, and you just do that. Don't need to do anything else. And they will go through the winter and start growing again in the spring. You'll inevitably leave some behind in the ground, however clever you are, unless you tip the pot out and sort through it. But that then continues your supply year on year, if you forget to replant them. Brilliant, eh? How cool is that? Another one that we can grow either outside, they like it outside, or in a pot on a windowsill is woody herbs. There are so many recipes that call for herbs like thyme, sage and rosemary, all woody things that grow like they're hard. You know, you wouldn't want to eat the stem, let's put it that way. And they grow with a sort of woody stalk. Needs quite a bit of work to get them to be edible. But they can be used in teas, potpourri, flower arrangements, you name it, and absolutely for cooking. They're also brilliant for drying, woody herbs. They dry really nicely and they'll keep for a year if you keep them in the dark. But they're very easy to grow and they're perennial. You can make things like parsley and dill. I don't know about dill, maybe try that. If you can make that go on and on and on, it always goes to flower with me. But they keep going on forever. Sage plants can live, 20 years. And the same with rosemary. There's a lot of very old rosemary plants around. So they're very good for having something that you know is going to be predictable next year. You're not going to have to replant those seeds. You've always got them with a little bit of care and a bit of attention. And you can keep harvesting them because they're evergreen, a lot of them, and they will keep growing through the winter. Now, the last one that I absolutely love is sorrel. That's another perennial herb. A perennial plant, really. I suppose some people call it a herb. It's used an awful lot in cookery here in Norway, but also in French cooking. It looks rather like spinach, and it grows in a low-lying bushy clump. And it's got a lovely flavour that is citrusy and sharp and tastes a little bit like green apples. Sort of cross between green apples and lemon. You don't need an awful lot of it, but it is great for making into soups and sauces, especially to go with things like chicken and fish. And if you don't pick it enough, it goes crazy, so you do need to keep picking it. It's super. You can put it in salads as well. I wouldn't put a lot of it in salads, but you can put some of it in salads. But if you just leave it in the ground, it will keep growing and it will come back early in the spring, probably before you get anything else coming through. You might have a few lettuces if you've gone to the effort of planting those out, but nothing else that's coming through will be ready to be eaten. But sorrel is, and it's good for you. So it's a lovely thing to have growing, and it does look pretty as well. You can grow it in a pot if you want to, and it's very Scandinavian, Northern European flavours. And I love it, I have to say. I do a lot of recipes with sorrel, and I would never be without it. I make sure I have it in my beds so that it's coming through even when we have the last little bit of snow. So, there you go. Some ideas for a perennial kitchen garden and why you should go ahead and start planting things that last. If you've enjoyed this episode, please subscribe to the Living a Nordic Life newsletters so you can get an email when I release a new episode. It's a quick and easy way to keep up with all things Nordic living. Please visit livinganordiclife.com. You can listen to Living a Nordic Life on lots of podcast apps, including Spotify, Apple Podcast, Google Podcasts, and plenty of others. If you've enjoyed the Living a Nordic Life podcast, why not leave me a rating? So that's the end of Living a Nordic Life for today, and I look forward to seeing you next time.